This is an AMI podcast.
It cannot be doubted that each of us can only see part of the picture. The doctor sees one, the patient another, the engineer a third, the economist a fourth, the pearl diver a fifth, the alcoholic a sixth, the cable guy a seventh, the sheep farmer an eighth, the Indian beggar a ninth, the pastor a 10th. Human knowledge is never contained in just one person. It grows from the relationships we create between each other and the world, and still, it's never complete. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review, where we talk all things audiobooks on a weekly basis, and this is a podcast with lots and lots to discuss. Now, as you may or may not be aware, this is our last episode of 2021, and we have started off with a pretty heavy quote. This is from the book When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. And Nazreen Abdelmajid is here. I'm here, Ramya Amuddin, the host of the show. And Nazreen, the reason why I picked this quote, I looked up, I did some searching, not going to lie to you. I looked up some quotes from literature, some standout quotes, some top quotes, and I wanted to pick something that would kind of drive home the theme of 2021. And this one kind of says it all, right? Because COVID-19, the elephant in every room, right? The reason why we do this, the reason why we don't do that, the reason why we're here, we're not there, that kind of thing, all COVID-19. But this quote kind of hit COVID a different way for me, where at the end of the day, we're still learning, we're still proceeding, we're living through something that not all of us can feel like we're getting anything out of, but as a whole, and as time passes, hindsight 2020, hopefully, we can get some answers. And the really the way that it works is that we all do it together. So that's why I picked this quote. Go back and listen to it. Again, it's When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. So Nazreen, like Christmas Day, 2021, this is where we're at right now. And it's not exactly what we'd picture as holiday time in the past.
Yeah, and especially that it's been going on for 2 years. So it's, we all thought it would be over beforehand, and it wasn't. So I'm just hoping everybody hangs on tight. We'll make the most of it out of this holiday. At the same time, staying safe is important. So how do you feel about all this?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I try to encompass what we're all feeling about this. And it's that we want to be at a good place. We may not be at that place right now, but let's just keep working towards what that place could be coming up, hopefully sooner rather than later, right? So, again, when we think of the world of books and being able to go into books for whatever reason, this can be reflective of how we feel. The world of books can be reflective of how we're feeling throughout the year. So that's why it's kind of a year-in reflection for us right now on AMI Audiobook Review. But we're going to talk a lot more about this with Aamer Khan, our guest for today, and our regular contributor on the show. But before we do that, let's hit some staples as we usually do at this time. Check out the CELA homepage. That's CELAlibrary.ca is where you can find what we're going to talk about. And we'll go through the featured titles at the very top. The Madness of Crowds by Louise Penny, Life Through Food by Stanley Tucci, and this is food writing. The Heart Principle by Helen Hone, and Temporary Romance for that last one. Same things up on the CELA blog, not many updates there, so I didn't want to spend too much time there. But if you're thinking either you haven't read too much of 2021's releases for audiobooks, or that you want to know what exactly really did get the biggest hits of 2021, because there were some great listens, some super heavy-hitting books and some not so heavy-hitting books, but some of the real thought-provoking ones as well. But I'm not going to give you a list of books to check out right now, what I'm going to do is give you some resources that you can use to go and find these curations. So, curations of the top reads and listens of 2021. So, number one is the best audiobooks of 2021. And this is put out by the Washington Post. There were some personal recommendations from the author on that post. The best Canadian fiction of 2021. This was hit a few times in the last week on AMI Audio. CBC Books put out a poll for people to check out, and there were some awesome reads and listens on this list, including some that we've featured over the last few months on Audiobook Review. Vulture put out 9 great audiobooks to listen to during your holiday travels. Now, I'm not insinuating that you go and travel for the holidays, but maybe the vibe is there. And the last one I have for you is Best of the Year 2021 from the Audible blog. Audible, of course, is putting out tons of content all the time. And at the end, they love to do a little bit of a recap. So check out that one as well. Nazreen, you have something that's been kind of trending and been on your mind for the last little week or so.
Yeah, as the last episode before our holidays, I thought I would bring up Barack Obama shared his favorite 2021 books. As each year concludes, the former president shares his entertainment recommendations from the previous 12 months, and he kicked off the tradition by revealing the books that left a lasting impression in 2021. His selects include powerful memoirs by women authors like Michelle Zauner's Crying in H Mart and Nadia Awusu's Aftershocks, in addition to fictional reads like Pulitzer Prize winning novelist Anthony Doerr's Cloud Cuckoo Land, and well researched nonfictions like Clint Smith's New York Times bestseller How the Word is Passed. While sharing his literary picks on Instagram, Obama wrote, quote, "Over the next few days, I'll share my annual list of favorite books, music, and movies. Art always sustains and nourishes the soul, but for me, music and storytelling felt especially urgent during this pandemic year, a way to connect even when we were cooped up." He added, "Since these are works I have actually listened to, watched, or read, I'm sure I've missed some worthy stuff," end quote. So that's exciting. Everybody on Twitter got excited about this. Apparently, it's
Totally.
very known that he does this every year. I did not know that. Make sure to go through those books. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And yeah, some of the celebrity readers, as well as people who have their own book clubs, are probably doing a lot of the same right now. So keep an ear out, keep an eye out. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio. I'm your host, Ramia Amuddin, here with Nazreen Abdel-Majid, and we are on Christmas Day talking a little bit about audiobooks and reflecting a lot on the year 2021 in books. And we're going to go straight into today's conversation with our lovely friend Aamer Khan. He's back to wrap up the year with us, and you have a lot to talk about. But going off the theme from our last segment, Aamer, any notable book lists for you that you wanted to mention or that you potentially regularly check out around this time of year?
Hello, everyone. Yes, actually, National Public Radio in the States puts out a book list that they curate through not only their book reviewers, but their actual article creators and content creators. So it's an interesting curated list, which they actually categorize and filter and put little synopses there. So it's actually really interesting to check out because it's got little check boxes you can check off in terms of categories, and then it sort of populates all the books and their little synopses and what the NPR folks have to say about it in terms of whether it's an author or it's somebody that actually does professional book reviews.
Yeah, I was going to say it's fun kind of going through a lot of the different lists because some of them are personal curations of and opinions and reviews that way. And then others are just straight up polls where you're getting public opinion. And then others very professional reviewing. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing NPR up. I really enjoyed going through the CBC list and seeing some of the familiar titles that we've mentioned here on the show or have actually read for our own book clubs and thinking, oh, that's awesome. That was a really good read. So I want to start pretty broad with you. 2021, what was it overall for you as a book year?
As a book year, it was really fantastic. It was a really standout year for me personally. As you know, I started Aamer's Evening Book Club with the Canadian Council for the Blind late last year. So most of the books and most of the sessions that we've had for the book club were in 2021, and really pushed me to take a look not just at what I would like, but what the book club would like, and look at different genres and really try to mix things up throughout the year.
Now, did that include a lot of new books, like 2021 releases, or it was all over the place more?
All over the place. We did dip our toes into a bit of classics too with Margaret Atwood's A Handmaid's Tale and these types
Yeah.
of books, but a lot of them were contemporary and just try to really mix it up between the genres too. We read sci-fi, we read a little bit of romance, we read rom-com, mystery, and there's still some that we haven't really touched, which I look forward to checking out for next year.
And it's hard, at least for me, to go back 12 months and think, okay, yeah, let's try to remember everything that we we read or listened to, because I'm thinking the last few months we've had a lot of heavier reads, or maybe if it's not even just the last few months, but it's that those are the ones that really stand out. But before we get deeper into that, what are some books that you're reading right now?
Okay, well, I mean, it is the holidays, so I've had some time off from my day job, so it's lent me quite a bit of time to check out a lot of different types of books, and a few folks from the book club have sent me some suggestions too. So the first one I'll talk about is The Pilot's Daughter by Meredith Jeter, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. And it's an interesting historical fiction book that's really well researched about New York City in the 1920s. The book sort of jumps between 1920s and the 1945, which is the last year of the Second World War. And it's a fairly interesting story about a young woman who's trying to figure out if her father's alive, but she also comes across a huge family secrets with regards to her aunt being a dancer in New York City. And it's really interesting to see how the author actually researched the book as well, because it was actually written during the pandemic. So the afterword is fairly interesting to see, as well as reading the actual book.
No, this is not. Is this one you particularly picked up for the holidays?
No, actually, this is something that somebody just sent me, and I'm like, okay, let me give this a shot and see what's going on with it. There are difficult parts to the book, and it's definitely not for children. It's definitely an adult book, but it's one of those books that's really well put together and touches a bunch of other themes. Another author I picked up, and I picked this up at the CNIB Unbound Book Club, is Elif Shafak, who's a Turkish author. I read two of her books. The one I'll talk about today is Three Daughters of Eve. Elif Shafak is the most famous author currently in Turkey. And her books usually talk about the differences between Eastern and Western cultures and Turkish idiosyncrasies and female empowerment and all those sort of things rolled into one. And The Three Daughters of Eve is a great example of how an author can really push the envelope on a lot of topics which are typically touchy in Western culture, but rolls them out into a story that really is capturing the imagination.
Now, we read a really long book recently. Is this another long one?
She does not write short books. And we've talked about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue in the past, and it's a similar read in terms of the way the descriptions are done and the word choices, and the writing quality is certainly spectacular, and it doesn't feel very long. This particular book, the Three Daughters of Eve. The second book I read was called The Architect's Apprentice. And that book seems to drag its feet a little bit towards the end, but it is one of these, sort of huge books. If you've seen the movie Gladiator, and it's that kind of epic kind of storytelling, without obviously the central theme being Rome.
Yeah, and by the time, like with books like this, by the time you're maybe 3/4 in and you're thinking, okay, it's slowing down a bit, you're still probably invested enough to finish the book anyway. So that's good. The next one you're reading is, or have finished, I think, is All Her Secrets.
Yeah, All Her Secrets, it actually has a really long title. All Her Secrets, a psychological thriller with a twist, I believe is the entire title, by Sue Watson. This was an interesting read. It's not the best example of a whodunit, but it's one of these books where you get perspectives from each character, and it sort of ties up at the end as to what happened. And throughout the book, you have clues, and it's a great guessing game if you're analytical and you want to figure out who did it and that kind of thing. The basic premise is pretty standard for something like a whodunit. There's a 40-something-year-old wife who is childless, and she's looking for some fun because all her friends have kids, and she's looking for something, and it so happens that one of her neighbors who moves in is a semi-famous movie star who is of course single. And they hit it off, and basically what ends up happening is that she ends up getting a stalker. And the movie star is obviously not concerned with this, but she is. And the story sort of rolls from there. I hate giving too many details to people when they read, but that's enough to get the ball rolling on that one.
Totally, totally. Well, that's awesome. So these are some general recommendations from you, things that you're wrapping up or have wrapped up recently. But the theme of today being kind of reflective as to the atmospheres we're living in right now, and it being end of year. Let's talk about the things that we've thought deeply about through book reading and listening in 2021. So any of the books that you wanted to discuss here?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some serious books out there which really make you think and really require some help to get through. James Joyce's Ulysses comes to mind, or Thomas More's Utopia, and these are the type of books that you usually see on people's bookshelves that are never read, or in the sort of that fake library look in the background of whatever show or movie you're watching. But there are books that really make you think, which are very much readable, and they are very much something worthwhile to read. They're not always for everyone. Reading books that make you think can put you in different places, especially during these times in terms of a pandemic and being alone. It may not be something you want to take on, and they're at different levels. But me, I typically categorize things. So for serious books and thinking books, I usually categorize them in two different pieces. One is looking at them from does it pull your heartstrings, and does it make you sort of reach for the tissue box? The other category I typically think of serious books is does it provide a new perspective? Is it something that's going to make me think about things in a different way?
That's a really great way to do it. I was going to say probably all of them are going to make me pull out the tissue box, but you're right. Some of them, it's just really that offering of a new perspective. So you want to go through the first ones first, the heartstrings.
Sure, I'll go through the heartstrings and heartbreakers. I'll go in first. That way we can end on a higher note there. But I Shall Not Hate It is an extremely powerful book. It's written by Dr. Ezeldine Abouleish, currently lives in Toronto and also lectures in Toronto, which is an interesting tie. But the book is basically about how he lost his family in Gaza. He was a doctor in Gaza in Palestine, and how that affected him and his outlook on things. And if you really need the whole case of tissue boxes for this one, every chapter you'll be repeating the title. How does this person how can he not hate like everything? But it's very powerful to read. If you're into serious books like that, that's definitely a heavier read, but an excellent read. Another tearjerker, which is typically taught in school or in some schools in high school, it's a juvenile book, is called Where the Red Fern Grows. Again, if you like dogs and you can't handle the loss of a dog, this is not the book for you.
No.
It is a very sort of traditional classic sort of book. It was written in the 1960s, I believe, by Wilson Rawling, and it's written very much in that style of a boy who is sort of discovering himself and has these dogs and decides to go hunting and figuring things out in his life.
And we'll pause there because we don't want to start crying on the show, right? Okay, next.
Need a minute to collect myself here.
Right.
We'll move on to the next category, which is new perspectives. There's sort of books that straddle both categories too. In the book club, we've read books like Born a Crime and Stay With Me, which are more cultural pieces, but they actually make you think as well. Born a Crime is, of course, Trevor Noah's book about South Africa and growing up during apartheid. Stay With Me is a historical fiction book, but based on Nigeria and culture from over there. But in terms of new perspectives and things, we mentioned Elif Shafak before. She does a great job of looking at things from an Eastern and Western perspective. The book, The Three Daughters of Eve, actually specifically looks at concepts of God and religion, which is interesting to see in today's times without getting too crazy in terms of one opinion or the other. The other one is actually one that you mentioned on the Sila homepage, the author Helen Hong. Her book, that's actually the third in a series. And I wasn't sure what to make of Helen Hong's book because there's a comedian with the same name. I thought it might be one of her books, but it's not. And I learned a little bit about Helen Hong, that she is on the autistic spectrum. And all three of these books actually have to do with romance with people who are on the autistic spectrum.
Right.
And I read two of the books so far, and I'm on the third, and I started only 3 days ago, so I can certainly give you a perspective as to how good this author is. I really enjoy these books. Again, I'm going to put a warning up that these are not for children. These are adult romance books, but it's very interesting to see an author with a unique perspective on how the mind works in terms of being a high-functioning autistic spectrum person. And I don't think too many of us would be surprised about how similar a lot of our own processes are to these processes and how those can relate. And Helen Hong does a fantastic job of explaining that to the reader.
I love the disability perspective. I think that, we talk disability so much on the network, and yet every single day there's something new to talk about and to be learned. So that's incredible. What else do you have for us?
I had Kevin Birmingham's book. Kevin Birmingham is an interesting one because, there are books out there that are critical reviews or professional critical reviews of books, and usually they're not up for any awards, or they're not really talked about in sort of contemporary circles or among friends or something like that. Usually more for the actual literary crowd. But Kevin Birmingham has actually broken through that barrier. His sort of note to fame is that he takes a look at the authors of famous books and tries to provide a perspective on why they were created and how they were created. So his first book was actually, I believe, I can't remember which award, but it was an award winner because it was about James Joyce's Ulysses, and how James Joyce lived his life while making the book. And there's very heavy scenes apparently in there about James Joyce having eye issues, and in those times eye surgery was done while the person was conscious. So the things that put you on the edge of your teeth and things like that, but it again lends itself more towards how or why that particular work is the way it is. His most recent book is about Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, which if you're looking for a long read, Ramya, that's probably one of the longest ones you can get, aside from War and Peace. But there's lots of excerpts about Dostoevsky's life and how that may happen. I haven't given Kevin Birmingham a try, but if you're like me and you've always been curious about taking on a rather large book or a complicated book, but don't want to do it alone and can't find a book club to do it, then this might be a good alternative in terms of reading one of these books, trying to figure out why and how these books work, and then actually giving the book a try.
Can't find a book club to read it gives me two contexts. A, the people in your book club don't want a book like this, or B, there's no book club doing it right now. Okay, Aamer, we have like a minute left. Give us a quick recommendation to kick off the new year with, so people can get started on something for the fresh start.
Absolutely. If you're looking for something light and fun and a rom-com style, then This Time Next Year is a fantastic read. We've done it for the book club. It starts off with New Year's and just rolls from there. If you're looking for a good laugh and an almost movie type book, I'd really suggest that one.
Thank you so much. You're literally wrapping up the year with us right now on this episode of AMI Audiobook Review, and we'll check back with you in January 2022. Appreciate you being with us on the show, Aamer.
It's my absolute pleasure. Always fantastic to be here.
We'll be back with AMI Audiobook Review on January 1st for the first episode of 2022. Until then, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and enjoy audiobook listening.
This was an AMI podcast. For more accessible media, visit ami.ca.